Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag, his calloused fingers leaving smudges on the fabric. The maintenance bay of the Zephyrian mining station hummed with the constant drone of atmospheric processors. A sound that had become as familiar to him as his own heartbeat over the past 3 years. Around him, alien workers from a dozen different species moved with practiced efficiency, their various appendages manipulating tools that seemed designed for beings far different from humans. The Zephyrians had made it clear from day one that humans were bottom-tier workers in their galactic hierarchy. Marcus remembered his first supervisor, a towering insectoid creature named Klaxth, explaining the pecking order with obvious disdain. At the top were the Zephyrians themselves, proud reptilian beings who claimed to be the descendants of ancient space dragons. Below them came the silicon-based Christex, then the gas-breathing Vorthans, and finally, scraping the very bottom of respectability, humans. Your kind, Klaxth had clicked through his mandibles, are useful for simple tasks. Manual labor. Basic maintenance. Nothing that requires actual intelligence or skill. Are so. Kesavara. 2. Kesavara. 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 Marcus had bitten his tongue then, just as he did now when he overheard similar comments. The other species on the station treated humans like barely sentient tools, good only for the jobs that were too dangerous, too dirty, or too boring for anyone else to bother with. They spoke about humans in front of them as if they couldn't understand, discussing their supposed limitations with the casual cruelty of beings who considered themselves inherently superior. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. Back on Earth, he'd held 3 engineering degrees and had worked on some of the most advanced propulsion systems in human space. But out here, in Zephyrian territory, his credentials meant nothing. Human technology was considered primitive, human education laughable, and human intelligence questionable at best. Today started like any other, with Marcus receiving his assignment from the duty roster projected in harsh blue light against the bay wall. Routine maintenance on mining platform 7. Nothing unusual there. He'd worked on similar platforms dozens of times. The pay was terrible. Barely enough to cover his basic needs. But it was honest work, and Marcus took pride in doing any job well, regardless of how others perceived it. The platform's main mining drill had been acting up, according to the work order. Reduced efficiency, unusual vibrations, possible bearing failure. Standard stuff. Marcus gathered his tools, a mix of human-made implements he'd brought from Earth and alien devices he'd learned to use through trial and error, and made his way to the transport shuttle. The Christech pilot, a being that resembled a walking cluster of purple gems, didn't acknowledge Marcus as he climbed aboard. To the pilot, Marcus was just another piece of cargo to be delivered. The flight to Platform 7 took 40 minutes through the asteroid field that housed the Zephyrian mining operation, past dozens of similar platforms extracting rare minerals from floating rocks the size of city blocks. Platform 7 looked identical to all the others from the outside. A rectangular structure grafted onto an asteroid like a mechanical parasite, bristling with drilling equipment and processing facilities. What made this platform different became apparent only after Marcus had docked and made his way to the main drill assembly. The platform's overseer was waiting for him there, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. This wasn't just any Zephyrian supervisor. This was Commander Thexval, one of the highest-ranking military officers in the local sector, whose reputation preceded him like the shockwave of an exploding star. Commander Thexval stood nearly 12 feet tall, his scales a deep crimson that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His eyes burned like molten gold, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. But what truly set him apart from other Zephyrians were the modifications he'd undergone. Cybernetic enhancements that turned him into something between a living being and a war machine. So, Thexval rumbled, his gaze fixed on Marcus with obvious contempt. They send me a human to fix my dragon. Marcus blinked in confusion. Your dragon, sir? A sound escaped Thexval's throat that might have been laughter if it hadn't carried such menace. The mining platform, Human. We call them dragons because they breathe fire and consume rock, turning stone into treasure. This particular dragon is my personal command, and it has been misbehaving. Looking around the platform with new eyes, Marcus began to understand. The Zephyrians didn't just see these mining platforms as industrial equipment. To them, each platform was a mechanical dragon, a technological embodiment of their species' proud heritage. The main drill wasn't just a tool. It was the dragon's mouth. The processing systems were its digestive organs. The power core was its heart. I specifically requested their best technician, Thexval continued, circling Marcus like a predator sizing up prey. Instead, they send me a human. Tell me, little mammal, what makes you think you're qualified to work on something as magnificent as this? Marcus had learned long ago that arguing with Zephyrian officers was pointless. Instead, he simply said, "I'll do my best to fix whatever's wrong. Commander, your best." Thexval's laugh was like gravel grinding in a cement mixer. Human. Best. How? Amusing. 10. The commander led Marcus through the platform, pointing out various systems with the casual arrogance of someone showing off a prized possession. The mining drill, he explained, was based on ancient Zephyrian technology, passed down through generations and refined over millennia. The power systems used crystals that had been blessed by their priests. The control mechanisms were tuned to respond to Zephyrian neural patterns. No human has ever fully understood dragon technology, Thexval declared as they reached the main control center. Your primitive minds simply lack the capacity. Marcus nodded politely while mentally cataloging everything he saw. The truth was, the technology wasn't nearly as mysterious as the Zephyrians liked to pretend. The mining drill was essentially a scaled-up version of industrial equipment he'd worked with on Earth, albeit with some interesting innovations in the power transfer systems. The control mechanisms were sophisticated, but they followed logical engineering principles that any competent technician could understand with enough study. The real problem became apparent when Marcus finally got a chance to examine the malfunctioning drill assembly. Someone had been performing maintenance on it recently, and they'd done it wrong. Spectacularly wrong. Critical components had been installed backward. Safety systems had been bypassed. And the power routing had been modified in ways that made Marcus wince. "Commander," Marcus said carefully, "who performed the last maintenance on this system?" Thexval's expression darkened. "I did, human. Are you questioning my competence?" That explained everything. Marcus had seen this pattern before on other platforms. Zephyrian officers who were too proud to admit they didn't fully understand the technology they commanded, making improvements that inevitably made things worse. But pointing this out directly would probably get him thrown off the platform, possibly out an airlock. "Not at all, sir," Marcus replied diplomatically. "I'm just trying to understand the system's current configuration, so I can identify the problem." For the next 2 hours, Marcus worked under Thexval's watchful eye, carefully documenting everything wrong with the mining platform. The list was extensive. Beyond the obviously incorrect maintenance, there were design flaws that had never been addressed, wear patterns that suggested the platform was being operated outside safe parameters, and jury-rigged solutions that solved immediate problems while creating bigger ones down the line. The irony was painful. The Zephyrians were so convinced of their own technological superiority that they'd never bothered to properly train their technicians. They relied on tradition and instinct rather than actual understanding, treating their technology like magic rather than engineering. Meanwhile, they dismissed human capabilities while desperately needing the systematic approach that human technical education provided. "Well?" Thexval demanded, as Marcus finished his initial assessment. "Have you identified the source of the problem?" Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. He could give a simple answer that would satisfy the commander's expectations, fix the most obvious problems, and collect his pay. It would be the safe choice, the expected choice, or he could tell the truth and risk everything. "Commander, there are multiple issues with this platform," Marcus began. "Some are related to component wear, but others stem from configuration problems that have been building up over time." Thexval's eyes narrowed. "Configuration problems?" "Yes, sir. The power routing has been modified in ways that create inefficiencies. Several safety systems have been bypassed, and some components have been installed in ways that will cause premature failure. The temperature in the control room seemed to drop several degrees. Are you suggesting that this platform has been improperly maintained? I'm suggesting that the problems are more complex than they initially appeared, Marcus replied carefully. But I believe they can be fixed. How long will these repairs take? Marcus did quick calculations in his head. If he just addressed the immediate symptoms, he could probably get the drill working again within a day. But if he wanted to fix the underlying problems, to really restore the platform to full functionality, it would take much longer. That depends on how thorough you want the repairs to be, Commander. I can get the drill operational quickly, or I can fix the root causes of the problems. The first option will take 1 day. The second will take at least a week. Thexval was quiet for a long moment, his golden eyes studying Marcus with an intensity that made the human feel like a specimen under a microscope. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a dangerous edge. You have 1 week, human. If you can truly fix my dragon, not just patch it, but make it better than it was before, then you will be rewarded. But if you fail, if you waste my time with human incompetence, the consequences will be severe. Thanks for watching. Things see to do. Thanks for watching. This for Morning Live. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Marcus nodded, understanding the stakes. I'll need access to the platform's complete technical specifications and maintenance logs. You'll have whatever you require. Thexval turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. One more thing, human. Word of this arrangement goes beyond this platform, and you'll wish I had simply spaced you immediately. The reputation of dragon technology is not something we take lightly. After the commander left, Marcus found himself alone in the control center of what was essentially a mechanical marvel, despite its current problems. The Zephyrians had built something impressive here, even if they didn't fully understand how to maintain it properly. The platform combined raw power with sophisticated control systems, and the mining drill itself was a genuine masterpiece of engineering. But it was also a machine that had been slowly dying due to ignorance and pride. Marcus spent the rest of the day studying the platform's technical documentation, written in a mixture of ancient Zephyrian script and modern technical notation. The original designers had been brilliant, creating systems that were both powerful and elegant. But somewhere along the way, that knowledge had been lost or corrupted, replaced by ritualistic maintenance procedures that missed the point entirely. By evening, Marcus had a complete picture of what needed to be done. It wasn't just about fixing the current problems, it was about restoring the platform to its original design specifications and then improving upon them. The Zephyrians had built a dragon, but they'd forgotten how to keep it healthy. As he settled into the temporary quarters assigned to him, Marcus couldn't help but smile. The other species in the galaxy might consider humans primitive and worthless, but they were about to learn something important. When humans encountered a broken machine, they didn't just fix it, they made it better. And sometimes, they made it magnificent. The next morning would mark the beginning of the most important week of Marcus's career. Though he didn't know it yet, he was about to demonstrate that human engineering wasn't primitive at all. It was simply different. Where the Zephyrians relied on tradition and instinct, humans used systematic analysis and creative problem-solving. Where other species saw technology as mystical and unchangeable, humans saw it as a puzzle to be understood and improved. Commander Thexval expected Marcus to fail, just as every other alien on the station expected humans to fail at anything requiring real skill or intelligence. They were about to discover how wrong they could be. In 7 days, this mining platform would be transformed from a slowly dying machine into something that surpassed even its original capabilities. And in the process, at least one Zephyrian would learn to see humans in an entirely different light. Marcus began work at dawn, his tools spread across the main drill chamber like surgical instruments, awaiting an operation. The first task was the most delicate, undoing the damage caused by improper maintenance, without making things worse. Each component had to be carefully removed, inspected, and either repaired or replaced according to the original design specifications. Commander Thexval appeared within the first hour, ostensibly to check on progress but actually to watch Marcus work. The Zephyrian's massive frame filled the doorway as he observed the human methodically dismantling parts of the drill assembly. "Explain what you're doing," Thexval commanded. Marcus didn't look up from the power coupling he was examining. This component was installed backward during the last maintenance cycle. It's been causing power fluctuations throughout the entire system. When I reinstall it correctly, the drill should run 20% more efficiently. Impossible. That coupling has been in that position for cycles. My senior technicians installed it. Everyone of the 40. Yes, sir. I can see their work. Marcus held up the coupling, pointing to obvious stress fractures around the connection points. The component itself is well made, but when it's installed backward, it creates resistance in the power flow. That resistance generates heat, which causes these fractures over time. Thexval moved closer, his golden eyes studying the damaged component. "Show me the correct installation." 2000. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus walked the commander through the proper procedure, explaining each step and the reasoning behind it. He could see Thexval's expression gradually changing from skepticism to confusion to something that might have been understanding. "Your technicians aren't incompetent," Marcus explained as he secured the coupling in its correct position. "But they're working from maintenance manuals that don't explain why things are done a certain way. Only how. When you understand the why, it becomes obvious when something is wrong. And you understand the why? I'm learning it. Your ancestors who designed this platform were brilliant engineers. They created systems that are incredibly sophisticated. But the documentation has been simplified over time. The technical knowledge got lost somewhere along the way." Thexval was quiet for a long moment. "Continue your work, human." Marcus spent the morning correcting installation errors and replacing worn components. Each fix was small by itself, but the cumulative effect was dramatic. By midday, the mining drill was running smoother than it had in years. Its vibrations reduced to almost nothing, and its power efficiency improved by 30%. But that was just the beginning. During his study of the platform's technical documentation, Marcus had noticed something interesting. The original designers had included provisions for upgrades and modifications that had never been implemented. The platform's current configuration represented perhaps 60% of its potential capabilities. The afternoon was spent installing improvements that the original designers had planned but never completed. Marcus rerouted power conduits to reduce energy loss, modified the drill's rotation mechanism to increase precision, and recalibrated the processing systems to handle a wider variety of mineral compositions. Word of the improvements spread quickly through the platform's crew. Zephyrian technicians began finding excuses to pass through the drill chamber, their professional curiosity overcoming their species' prejudices. They watched in fascination as Marcus worked, using techniques they'd never seen before. "How did you know to do that?" asked one of them, a younger Zephyrian named Vextar, as Marcus completed a particularly complex modification to the drill's guidance system. "Pattern recognition," Marcus replied, not stopping his work. "When you understand how energy flows through a system, you can identify bottlenecks and eliminate them. This guidance system was designed to be more accurate, but someone disabled half its sensors to reduce maintenance requirements. Those sensors fail frequently," Vextar protested. "It's easier to operate without them, only because they were installed in the wrong environment. Look here. These sensors are designed to operate in a clean atmosphere, but they've been mounted in areas exposed to mineral dust. Move them to these protected positions, add some simple filtering, and they'll last 10 times longer while providing much better data." Marcus spent an hour showing Vextar how to properly install and maintain the sensors, explaining the principles behind their operation. The young Zephyrian asked intelligent questions and grasped concepts quickly, making Marcus realize that the species wasn't lacking in intelligence, they were lacking in systematic education. By the end of the second day, the mining platform was operating at efficiency levels that exceeded its original specifications. But Marcus wasn't finished yet. He'd identified several modifications that could push the platform's capabilities even further. improvements that the original designers couldn't have imagined with their more limited technology. Commander Thexval's visits became more frequent and lasted longer. On the third day, he arrived, carrying a portable chair, an admission that he intended to stay and observe for extended periods. His questions became more detailed and technical, revealing a sharp intelligence that had been poorly served by his traditional education. "Explain this modification," Thexval said, gesturing at Marcus's latest project. "I'm installing a predictive maintenance system," Marcus replied. "Instead of waiting for components to fail, the system monitors their condition continuously and alerts us when they're approaching their service limits. It should reduce unexpected downtime by 90%. Such systems exist? The components exist in your inventory. They're used for other purposes on the platform. I'm just combining them in a new way and writing software to analyze the data." Marcus paused in his work to look at the commander. "Your ancestors understood these principles. Look at this documentation from the original designers. They describe the theory clearly. But somewhere along the way, that knowledge got lost." Thexval studied the ancient text Marcus had referenced, his expression thoughtful. "You can read the old technical script? It took some learning, but yes. The mathematical concepts are universal, and once I understood the notation system, the rest became clear." Marcus returned to his work, adding sensors and connecting them to a central monitoring system he'd built from spare parts. The interesting thing is how advanced some of their ideas were. They were thinking about problems that human engineers only started addressing in the last few decades. Yet your people solved these problems while ours forgot them. The admission hung in the air between them. Marcus continued working, giving Thexval time to process what he'd just acknowledged. When the human finally spoke, his voice was careful and respectful. "Different species approach problems differently, Commander. Zephyrians excel at creating powerful, elegant solutions. Humans excel at understanding and improving systems over time. Both approaches have value." On the fourth day, something unexpected happened. Marcus arrived at the drill chamber to find Vex's Tar already there, studying the modifications Marcus had made the previous day. The young Zephyrian had brought a portable computer and was running diagnostics on the various systems. "The efficiency improvements are holding steady," Vextar reported. "And the predictive maintenance system is already identifying potential problems in other parts of the platform." Marcus smiled. "Want to help me install the next upgrade?" For the rest of the day, Marcus worked with Vextar as his assistant, teaching the Zephyrian human engineering techniques while learning Zephyrian approaches to problem-solving. They made a surprisingly effective team, combining Marcus's systematic methodology with Vextar's intimate knowledge of dragon technology. Commander Thexval watched this collaboration with an expression that Marcus couldn't quite interpret. When Vextar successfully completed a complex calibration procedure using human techniques, the commander's approval was visible. "You learn quickly," Thexval told his subordinate. "The human's methods are illuminating," Vextar replied carefully. On the fifth day, Marcus began implementing the most ambitious modification yet, a complete overhaul of the platform's AI systems. The Zephyrians had built sophisticated automation into their dragons, but they'd never fully utilized its potential. Marcus spent the day rewriting control algorithms and integrating systems that had previously operated independently. The work was complex enough that even Vextar couldn't follow all of it, but Commander Thexval proved surprisingly knowledgeable about AI architecture. His questions revealed a deep understanding of how artificial intelligence systems functioned, even if he'd never applied that knowledge to improving them. "Your modifications will change how the dragon thinks," Thexval observed. "They'll give it better tools for thinking," Marcus corrected. "The AI will be able to coordinate all the platform systems more effectively, optimizing performance in real time based on changing conditions. And if something goes wrong, I'm building in multiple safeguards and fallback systems. If the new AI fails, the platform will automatically revert to its current configuration. But I don't think that'll be necessary. The core intelligence is solid. I'm just giving it better access to information and more sophisticated decision-making tools." By evening, the AI modifications were complete. Marcus activated the new systems and watched as the platform's efficiency climbed steadily over the next several hours. The dragon was learning to optimize its own operation, making tiny adjustments to drilling speed, power distribution, and processing parameters in response to changing conditions. The sixth day brought an unexpected visitor. Admiral Korthax, the sector commander and Thexval's superior officer, arrived unannounced for an inspection. Marcus had heard stories about the admiral, a veteran warrior who'd earned his position through centuries of successful campaigns and had little patience for inefficiency or failure. Admiral Korthax was even larger than Commander Thexval, his scales bearing the scars of countless battles, and his cybernetic enhancements marking him as one of the Zephyrian military's elite. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of absolute command. "I've heard interesting reports about this platform's performance," the Admiral announced. "Production is up 40% over the last week, with zero downtime for maintenance issues." "Yes, Admiral," Thexval replied. "The human has made significant improvements to our dragon. Thanks for watching." "And we have the better?" "Thank you for watching." Admiral Korthax's gaze fixed on Marcus with laser-like intensity. "Show me." For the next 3 hours, Marcus demonstrated the various modifications he'd made, explaining each improvement and its impact on platform performance. Admiral Korthax asked probing questions that revealed an engineer's understanding disguised beneath a warrior's exterior. "These predictive maintenance systems," the Admiral said, studying one of Marcus's displays, "they could be implemented on other platforms, with some modification for local conditions." "Yes, sir. The basic principles are universal." "And this AI coordination system? It's designed to work with standard Zephyrian automation. The hardest part would be training technicians to maintain it properly." Admiral Korthax was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned to Commander Thexval. "I want detailed reports on all modifications. If they prove stable over the next month, we'll begin implementing similar upgrades across the sector." After the Admiral left, Commander Thexval found Marcus working on final calibrations in the control center. "You have impressed the Admiral," Thexval said. "That is not easily done." "I just fixed what was broken and improved what could be better," Marcus replied. "Any competent engineer could have done the same thing." No," Thexval said firmly. "Any competent engineer could have fixed what was broken. What you've done goes far beyond that. You've made my dragon better than it ever was. Better than its original designers imagined possible." Marcus looked up from his work, seeing something new in the commander's golden eyes. Respect. Not the grudging acknowledgement of useful work, but genuine professional respect. "The original designers were brilliant," Marcus said. "They just didn't have access to some of the techniques we've developed since then. If they were here today, they'd probably be improving on my improvements. Perhaps, but they are not here. You are." Thexval moved to the main display, which showed the platform's current operational status. Every system showed green, with efficiency numbers that seemed almost too good to be true. "Tomorrow is your final day. What else needs to be done?" Marcus smiled. "Nothing needs to be done. But there are a few things that could be done, if you're interested in making this platform truly special. Show me." The seventh day dawned with Marcus putting the finishing touches on modifications that pushed the platform beyond anything in the Zephyrian fleet. He'd integrated advanced sensors that allowed the AI to analyze asteroid composition before drilling began, optimizing the approach for maximum mineral extraction. He'd installed energy recovery systems that captured waste heat and converted it back to useful power. He'd even modified the platform's defensive systems, improving their response time and accuracy using lessons learned from human military engineering. By afternoon, the mining platform was operating at nearly twice its original efficiency, while using less power and requiring minimal maintenance. It had been transformed from a slowly failing machine into something that represented the best of both human and Zephyrian engineering. Commander Thexval stood beside Marcus in the control center, watching displays that showed performance levels beyond anything he'd thought possible. "My dragon has become something magnificent," the commander said quietly. "It was always magnificent," Marcus replied. "It just needed someone to understand how to bring out its full potential." Thexval turned to study Marcus, his expression serious. "I owe you an apology, human. And more than an apology, I owe you respect that I failed to show from the beginning. You don't owe me anything, Commander. This has been the most interesting project I've worked on in years. Nevertheless," Thexval straightened to his full height, his voice taking on formal tones. "I, Commander Thexval of the Zephyrian Stellar Navy, acknowledge that I was wrong about human capabilities. You have demonstrated skills that exceed those of our best technicians, and you have done so with honor and professionalism despite my initial discourtesy." Marcus felt a warmth in his chest at the formal acknowledgement, but before he could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the platform. Emergency lights bathed the control center in red, and urgent messages flashed across the displays. "What's happening?" Marcus asked, quickly scanning the system status indicators. Thexval was already moving to the communications console. "Proximity alarms. Something large is approaching the asteroid field." He activated the platform's sensors, and the main display filled with tactical information. 3 massive ships had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Vessels that Marcus didn't recognize. But that made Commander Thexval go very still. "Raxthul Raiders," Thexval said, his voice grim. "A battle group, by the size of those ships. They're moving into attack formation." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. He'd heard of the Raxthul, a species of aggressive predators who preyed on mining operations and trade routes throughout this sector of space. They were known for taking what they wanted and destroying what they couldn't take. "How long before they reach us?" Marcus asked. "At their current speed, perhaps 2 hours." Thexval was already sending emergency messages to other platforms and the sector command. "But our defensive systems are designed for deterrence, not actual combat against a force this size." Marcus looked at the tactical display, his engineer's mind automatically analyzing the problem. The mining platforms had weapons, but they were intended to deal with single raiders or small groups, not a coordinated attack by multiple warships. But then he remembered the modifications he'd made to this platform's defensive systems, improvements that had been intended to enhance their effectiveness against minor threats, but which might, just might, give them a chance against something larger. "Commander," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. "How much do you trust the improvements I've made to your dragon?" Thexval's golden eyes met his, and Marcus saw understanding dawn in their depths. "With my life," the commander replied. "What do you need?" Marcus's fingers flew across the control interfaces as he began implementing modifications he'd never imagined he'd need to use. The platform's defensive systems were sophisticated, but they'd been designed for a different kind of threat. Against the Raxthul battle group approaching through the asteroid field, conventional defensive tactics would be suicide. "I need you to trust me completely," Marcus told Commander Thexval as he began rerouting power systems throughout the platform. "What I'm about to do is going to seem impossible, maybe even insane." "Explain quickly," Thexval replied, his own hands working at the tactical console. "Admiral Korthax is coordinating the defense of the other platforms, but he's ordered us to evacuate. Our dragon isn't considered combat capable against this level of threat. That's because no one's ever tried to turn a mining platform into a proper warship." Marcus pulled up the platform's complete schematic, highlighting the modifications he was planning in real time. "Your dragon has more raw power than most military vessels. It just uses that power for drilling and processing instead of combat." Marcus's plan was audacious to the point of madness. The mining drill, designed to cut through solid rock, could be reconfigured as a devastating close-range weapon. The mineral processing systems could be modified to manufacture improvised ammunition. The platform's massive power core could be overloaded to provide energy levels that would make the defensive systems far more effective than their designers had ever intended. "This will destroy the platform's mining capabilities," Thexval pointed out as he watched Marcus's modifications take shape. "Only temporarily. If we survive, I can restore everything within a few days." Marcus paused in his work to meet the commander's gaze. "But if we don't try this, we won't survive at all." Thexval nodded grimly and began implementing his part of the plan. As the platform's commander, he had override codes that could reconfigure systems in ways that normal operating procedures would never allow. Together, He and Marcus began transforming the mining dragon into something that had never existed before. A hybrid of industrial platform and military weapon. The first modification was the most dramatic. Marcus rerouted the main mining drill's power systems, turning it from a precision boring tool into a plasma cutter capable of slicing through starship armor. The drill's targeting system, normally used to identify mineral deposits, was reprogrammed to track hostile vessels and predict their movement patterns. Vextar, Thexval called to his subordinate, who had arrived at the control center in response to the emergency alerts. Begin evacuating non-essential personnel to the escape pods. Sir, Admiral Korthax has ordered our complete evacuation. The Admiral's orders are noted. However, as platform commander, I'm exercising my authority to remain operational as long as possible. Thexval's tone brooked no argument. Ensure that all personnel who want to leave can do so, but inform those who remain that we're about to attempt something unprecedented. While Vextar coordinated the evacuation, Marcus continued his frantic modifications. The platform's mineral processing systems, designed to sort and refine extracted materials, were being converted into ammunition fabrication units. Using raw materials from the platform's storage areas, these systems could produce high-density projectiles optimized for different types of targets. The defensive weapon systems received similar upgrades. Marcus overrode their safety protocols, allowing them to draw power directly from the main reactor at levels that would burn out the weapons eventually, but would make them devastatingly effective in the short term. He also linked them to the platform's new AI coordination system, enabling them to work together with an efficiency that no manually operated system could match. Proximity alert, Vextar announced. The Rax-Thul fleet has reached the outer edge of the asteroid field. On the main tactical display, 3 massive warships moved through space with predatory grace. They were sleek, angular vessels designed for speed and destruction, each one bristling with weapons that could reduce a mining platform to debris in minutes. Behind them came a collection of smaller ships, raiders and transports, intended to strip anything valuable from the wreckage they left behind. They're moving into position around Platform 1, Thexval observed. Standard Rax-Thul tactics. They'll hit the platforms one by one, taking what they want and destroying the rest. Marcus watched the enemy fleets approach with growing dread and determination. The Rax-Thul were known for their efficiency and ruthlessness. They would overwhelm each platform's defenses quickly, strip it of anything valuable, and move on to the next target. By the time they reached Platform 7, they would have learned everything there was to know about Zephyrian defensive capabilities. Unless Platform 7 showed them something completely unexpected. How long until they reach us? Marcus asked. At their current rate of advance, perhaps 40 minutes, Thexval replied. They're taking their time, probably scanning each platform for the most efficient approach. Good. That gives us time to finish the modifications. Marcus pulled up another set of system controls. I need to make one more change, but it's going to seem crazy even by the standards of what we've already done. What now? I want to disconnect the platform from the asteroid and turn it into a mobile weapons platform. The silence that followed Marcus's statement was profound. Even Vextar stopped what he was doing to stare at the human engineer. That's impossible, Vextar said finally. Mining platforms aren't designed for independent flight. We don't have the propulsion systems or the navigation capabilities. We have the most powerful engines in the sector, Marcus replied, gesturing toward the mining drill assembly. They're designed to bore through rock, but with some modifications, they can serve as extremely efficient reaction drives. And we have the most sophisticated AI system in the fleet after the upgrades I've made. It can handle navigation calculations that would challenge a dedicated flight computer. Thexval studied the schematic Marcus had pulled up, his expression thoughtful. You want to turn my dragon into a starship. A very angry, very dangerous starship that the Rax-Thul will never see coming. Marcus began implementing the modifications as he spoke. They're expecting to fight stationary targets with predictable defensive capabilities. Instead, they'll face a mobile platform with firepower that exceeds most military vessels. The work required to detach the platform from its asteroid was complex and dangerous. Systems that had been designed to operate in a stable, connected configuration had to be rerouted and recalibrated for independent operation. Life support systems needed backup power sources. The artificial gravity generators required complete recalibration. Most challenging of all, the entire platform had to be rebalanced for flight operations. Status report from Admiral Korthax, Vextar announced. Platform 1 has fallen. Minimal damage to the Raxthul fleet. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but he didn't stop working. How long did they take? 11 minutes from initial engagement to complete destruction. And Platform 2? Under attack now. The Admiral estimates 8 minutes before it falls. The mathematics were grim. At their current rate, the Raxthul would reach Platform 7 in less than 30 minutes, and Marcus's modifications still needed another hour to be complete. Unless something changed dramatically, they would face the enemy fleet, with their preparations only partially finished. "Commander," Marcus said, not looking up from his work, "I need you to make a decision. We can either finish these modifications and hope the Raxthul give us enough time, or we can implement a partial solution and try to buy ourselves more time to complete the work." "What kind of partial solution?" "We detach from the asteroid now and move to a position where we can attack the Raxthul while they're busy with Platform 4. We won't be fully combat ready, but we might be able to surprise them and disrupt their attack pattern." Thexval was quiet for a moment, studying the tactical situation. "If we move now, we'll be committing ourselves to battle with incomplete preparations. If we wait, we'll be fighting alone after they've destroyed all the other platforms." "Platform 2 has fallen," Vextar reported grimly. "Platform 3 is under attack." "Do it," Thexval decided. "Detach us from the asteroid and prepare for combat operations." The next few minutes were controlled chaos, as Marcus and Thexval worked together to separate their platform from its asteroid base. Emergency systems activated throughout the structure as it shifted from a stationary installation to an independent spacecraft. The mining drill, now serving as their primary propulsion system, fired with precisely controlled bursts that pushed them away from the asteroid and into open space. "Navigation systems online," Vextar reported. "Artificial gravity stable. Life support nominal." "Weapon status?" Thexval asked. "Primary plasma drill ready for combat operations. Defensive systems at 80% of full modification. Improvised ammunition production online." Marcus checked his displays quickly. "We're not fully ready, but we're more dangerous than anything the Raxthul have faced before." On the tactical display, Platform 7 appeared as a new contact moving through the asteroid field with surprising speed and agility. The platform's massive bulk, designed for industrial operations, had been transformed into something that moved like a predator stalking its prey. "Platform 3 has fallen," Vextar announced. "Platform 4 is under attack. The Admiral is requesting our status." "Tell him we're moving to support Platform 4, Thexval ordered. "And inform him that we've made significant modifications to our defensive capabilities." Marcus watched the tactical display as their platform moved into position. The Raxthul fleet was focused on Platform 4, their 3 warships pounding the stationary target with devastating firepower. They had no idea that behind them, a mining platform had transformed itself into something unprecedented. "Range to target?" Thexval asked. 2 minutes to optimal firing position," Marcus replied. "The plasma drill will be most effective at close range, but the defensive systems can engage from current distance." "Weapons free," Thexval commanded. "Engage when ready." Marcus's finger hovered over the firing control for a moment, then pressed it with steady determination. The modified defensive systems opened fire first, sending streams of high-energy projectiles toward the nearest Raxthul warship. The alien vessel's shields flared as they absorbed the initial impacts. But these weren't the weak defensive shots the raiders had encountered at other platforms. The Raxthul ship staggered under the barrage, its shields fluctuating as Marcus's enhanced weapons delivered far more power than their appearance suggested possible. Alarms began sounding on the enemy bridge as they realized they were facing something entirely unexpected. Unknown contact engaging from Grid 7 to 7, came the panicked transmission from the Raxthul fleet, intercepted by Platform 7's communication systems. "They're confused," Thexval observed with grim satisfaction. "They don't understand what they're facing." They don't understand what they're facing. The lead Raxthul warship turned to engage the new threat, its own weapons charging for retaliation. But Marcus had anticipated this response. As the enemy ship maneuvered into what it thought was an advantageous position, Platform 7 suddenly accelerated using its modified propulsion systems, closing the distance at a rate that no mining platform should have been capable of. Firing solution acquired, Marcus announced. Plasma drill ready. Fire. The mining drill, now configured as a close-range plasma weapon, discharged with devastating effect. The focused energy beam, designed to cut through solid rock, struck the Raxthul warship's shields and burned through them like they were made of paper. The beam continued through the ship's armor, cutting a glowing channel through its hull that vented atmosphere and internal systems into space. The enemy warship reeled away from the attack, trailing debris and sparks. It was still functional, but badly damaged, and clearly no longer confident in its superiority. Impossible, Vextar whispered. A mining platform. Just crippled a Raxthul warship. We're not a mining platform anymore, Marcus replied, already preparing for the next engagement. We're something new. The other two Raxthul warships were converging on Platform 7 now, abandoning their attack on Platform 4 to deal with this unexpected threat. But Marcus had planned for this scenario. As the enemy ships moved into attack formation, Platform 7 demonstrated another capability they hadn't expected. The platform could maneuver like a fighter craft. Using the mining drill as a primary propulsion system and the smaller mining equipment as attitude thrusters, Marcus sent the massive platform through a series of evasive maneuvers that no ship of its size should have been able to perform. Enemy fire that should have been devastating instead passed harmlessly through space as Platform 7 danced between the attacks with impossible grace. How is this possible? Thexval asked, gripping his command chair as the platform twisted through another impossible turn. Physics, Marcus replied, his hands flying over the control interfaces. When you understand how forces work in space, you can use any propulsion system creatively. The Raxthul are thinking like they're fighting a conventional opponent, but we're not conventional. The battle continued with Platform 7 using its unexpected capabilities to stay one step ahead of the enemy fleet. Marcus's modifications allowed the platform to fight like nothing the Raxthul had ever encountered. A hybrid of industrial strength and military precision that defied their expectations at every turn. But the enemy was learning and adapting. The damaged warship had withdrawn to a safe distance and was coordinating the attack of its two companions. They were beginning to predict Platform 7's movements and adjust their tactics accordingly. We need to end this quickly, Marcus told Thexval. The longer the fight continues, the more they'll understand our capabilities. What do you recommend? Marcus studied the tactical situation, his engineer's mind calculating possibilities and probabilities. Then, he smiled with the expression of someone who had just solved an impossible puzzle. I recommend we show them what happens when human engineering meets Zephyrian pride. What followed was the most audacious maneuver in the history of space combat. Marcus used Platform 7's mining systems to grab a small asteroid, accelerated it using the platform's powerful engines, and launched it at the Raxthul fleet like a massive kinetic projectile. The asteroid, moving at tremendous velocity and guided by the platform's targeting systems, struck the lead enemy warship with devastating force. The impact shattered both the asteroid and the warship, creating a field of debris that made maneuvering dangerous for the remaining enemy vessels. But Marcus wasn't finished. As the surviving Raxthul ships struggled to avoid the debris field, Platform 7 moved in for close-range combat, its plasma drill ready to deliver the finishing blow. The second enemy warship fell to a direct hit that cut it completely in half. The third, faced with the prospect of fighting a platform that had just destroyed two of its companions, made the practical decision to retreat. It accelerated away from the asteroid field, leaving its raider escorts to fend for themselves. The smaller Raxthul ships, designed for scavenging and harassment rather than actual combat, proved no match for Platform 7's enhanced defensive systems. Within minutes, the entire enemy force had been either destroyed or driven off. All enemy contacts have withdrawn from the system, Vextar reported, his voice filled with amazement. Platform 7 has successfully repelled the Raxthul attack. In the aftermath of the battle, As Platform 7 drifted among the debris of the enemy fleet, Marcus finally allowed himself to relax. They had done something impossible. Transformed a mining platform into a weapon of war and used it to defeat enemies that should have been unstoppable. Admiral Korthax is requesting immediate communication, Vextar announced. The Admiral's image appeared on the main screen, his scarred features displaying an expression Marcus had never seen before. It took a moment to identify it as awe. "Commander Thexval," Admiral Korthax said slowly, "I have just witnessed the impossible. How did a mining platform destroy an entire Rax-Thul battle group?" "The human," Thexval replied simply. "Marcus Chen transformed my dragon into something beyond our imagination." Admiral Korthax's gaze shifted to Marcus, studying him with new eyes. "Human, you have accomplished something that will be remembered for generations. You have shown that our species have much to learn from each other." In the days that followed, word of the battle spread throughout Zephyrian space and beyond. The story of a human mechanic who transformed a mining platform into a ship of war became legend, told and retold with growing embellishment. But those who had been there, who had witnessed the impossible become reality, knew the truth was remarkable enough without exaggeration. Commander Thexval recommended Marcus for the highest civilian honors that Zephyrian society could bestow. More importantly, he insisted that Marcus be given authority over all technological improvements throughout the sector. The human who had been considered barely qualified for basic maintenance was now recognized as one of the most valuable engineers in known space. Vextar became Marcus's first student, learning human engineering techniques that he would later teach to others. Within a year, hybrid human Zephyrian engineering teams were working throughout the sector, combining the best of both species' approaches to create technologies that surpassed what either could accomplish alone. The other alien species in the region took notice of these developments. The Kristex, who had always considered themselves the galaxy's premier technologists, began requesting exchanges with human engineers. The Vorthans, masters of atmospheric processing, found that human systematic approaches could improve their traditional methods dramatically. But perhaps the most significant change was in how these species viewed humanity itself. The casual dismissal and contempt that had characterized their attitudes was replaced by respect and curiosity. Humans were no longer seen as primitive creatures suitable only for manual labor. They were recognized as valuable partners in the ongoing work of galactic civilization. Marcus himself continued to work in the asteroid field, but his role had expanded far beyond basic maintenance. He became the chief engineer for the entire mining operation, responsible for improvements and innovations that kept pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Platform 7, restored to its mining functions but retaining its combat modifications, became a symbol of what could be accomplished when different species worked together with mutual respect. Years later, when Marcus was asked about the battle that changed everything, he would always give the same answer. He hadn't won because human technology was superior, or because human engineering was better than what other species could accomplish. He'd won because humans approached problems differently, with systematic analysis, creative thinking, and the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless species, each contributing their own strengths to the greater whole. Humans had found their place in that galaxy not by dominating or conquering, but by proving that their unique perspective was valuable, that their different way of thinking could solve problems that had seemed insurmountable. Commander Thexval, now Admiral Thexval, would often visit Marcus in his expanded workshop aboard the rebuilt Platform 7. They would discuss new projects and improvements, two engineers from different worlds working together to create things neither could have imagined alone. And sometimes, late in the evening when their work was done, they would stand before the great viewing ports and look out at the stars, both of them understanding that they had been part of something remarkable. The moment when humanity proved that they belonged among the stars, not as servants or subjects, but as equals, partners in the grand adventure of galactic civilization.